that cover pretty much all types of work, from research to production, marketing, and sales. Okay, and the last thing that I think is very easy to overlook, and I really think is something that we don't understand very well. We've built organizations, we've built companies around really two different relationships. There being people who buy stuff, which are customers, and people who work for us, who are employees. Right? And now we're blurring the line, and we're doing all sorts of exchanges that sort of go outside of pure financial. And so this is rather sort of complex, poorly drawn diagram. But this was one exercise that we did for a design contest. And we were trying to understand, in addition to paying winners, how else were people getting rewards, right? For example, if their work was being featured through a media partner, what was that worth to people? If we were asking them to do something good, what percentage of people were sort of interested in pro-social behavior? And so ultimately, between all the stakeholders of designers and a contest platform and a sponsor for the contest platform, there's a lot of exchanges going on that we typically don't model, and I think are very important to understand. So a lot of the business models, typically you think of Excel. A lot of the exchanges have nothing to do with money, right? And a lot of them are perceived in terms of how people think about fairness. And when they don't work, the businesses fail, quite spectacularly, actually. Okay, so a couple of other points, and these are also recurring. So on the one hand, we're talking about what are the elements that are being exchanged, what are the assets, is the exchange fair, and who's doing the work, what are the roles. The other things to look out for are, you really can't do crowdsourcing without taking the business process and rethinking it in detail. And so very often that means a couple of things. One is not only redesigning the process to think about people that are not employees, or that may be customers, or have a different relationship as a stakeholder. But also necessitates tools, because you're talking about working very often with much larger teams. And again, so Irene sort of has gone through this trajectory of working with small teams and then working with very big teams. So I'm not going to get into this too much. The other thing that seems to happen as a result of reorganizing is when you work at scale, you need new tools, you need new ways to get at the data that's left behind. And there's one part of that data that seems to show up over and over again, which is measuring how good people are at the thing that you've asked them to do, right? And so these are a couple of different things. Clouds is sort of, like, at this point, whether you like it or not, I think it's probably the standard for influence. I'm still not entirely sure what influence means, but that's one score. Actually, the incorrectly named idea stage is actually from Lego, and this is a way of figuring out the value of an idea. So how's the idea doing based on voting? And then the last is, at the bottom, is actually an attempt to get at a contribution to a creative process. So a mix of how many ideas have I shared, what's the value of my feedback, and how good is my voting? And actually that's an interesting question when you think about what defines a good vote, right? And I think Pia mentioned yesterday, and she's going to talk about community management, people gaming the system. Well, if I'm a good voter, I have some way of voting that's good for everyone and good for the community. So these come up in every model. There's some way of understanding what the crowd's doing and how well they're doing it. Not only at a crowd level, but at an individual level.